All right, breaking news to tell you about just came across the wire just this second. Mexico saying it expects to know within 48 hours if NAFTA is to remain trilateral. This is from the Mexican Economy Minister, Ildefonso Guajardo. He said on Friday that the United States and Mexico are making a serious attempt to reach a deal on the North American Free Trade Agreement, saying that within 48 hours it would become clear if the deal would remain trilateral. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been talking about NAFTA with the incoming president of Mexico. The leaders had a telephone conversation yesterday. We are learning about it tonight. The president-elect has reportedly said Trudeau asked Mexico to intervene on Canada's behalf in the ongoing trade talks between Ottawa and Washington. The Prime Minister's office did not confirm that part of the story. The U.S. has given Canada until Monday to sign on to a new NAFTA deal. Now, the deadline comes as the text of the proposed agreement between the states and Mexico was to be made public tonight. However, there appear to be some major moves going on behind the scenes. Details of the trade deal reached between the U.S. and Mexico were supposed to be released. Well, I was supposed to be able to tell you those details now. They were supposed to be presented to the Mexican Senate, but all of that has been delayed. And as I say, there are reports saying Canada is being given more time to come on board. Mexico has said in the past it wants Canada to be part of any reworked trade deal. Dan Chiriak is an international trade expert, and Dan is a former deputy chief economist at Foreign Affairs and International Trade Canada. Dan, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Okay, what do you make of these latest developments?
Not too much. I guess we've seen many deadlines come and go. I've lost track of how many. At the end of the day, we have a perfectly functioning North American free trade zone with very few irritants, especially between Canada and the United States. And but we do know that Mr. Trump does not like NAFTA, and he is trying to find a molehill in the Canada-U.S. trade relationship to turn into a hill for someone to die on. And that, I think, is what is behind this diplomatically toxic a negotiating approach to negotiate a deal with Mexico, give it to Canada as a fait accompli and say sign or what. So I think that's where we are right now. But Mr. Trump's negotiating authority from Congress is to submit a trilateral deal. So he actually needs Canada to sign on. So Canada's got some leverage here. Okay,
so how do we use that leverage?
Well, Canada has explicitly said that, Minister Freeland has said, the deal will be done when it's a good deal for Canada. So here's what we know about the deal. Right now, what's on the table is not a good deal. Mexico itself called it NAFTA 0.8. The major elements of it, which would be impact on sort of on commerce and the value of the deal between Canada and the U.S., would be cost raising in the auto sector, raise auto costs by possibly in the thousands of dollars. Would raise healthcare costs. If we were to actually implement this in a trade model and work it out, it would be negative. So it's not a good deal, and so we can expect that Canada would be holding fast. And also, in terms of the quid pro quo that Canada wants to get from the United States, which is some safeguard against arbitrary application of tariffs, that is a sticking point for Canada. Apparently, the United States thinks it's not. So I don't think that we're close, actually, to what would be a final deal for Canada.
Yeah, I was listening to Canada's ambassador to the United States earlier this week, and he was indicating that dairy is the hill that Trump seems to want to die on. The negotiators, he implied, were not so much, Lighthizer and the crew were not so much interested in dairy. The real sticking points, Chapter 19, resolution mechanism, and also the idea that what did Mexico get? Can we do something better to make sure that there won't be any national security surprises in the future?
So if you take a look at the hammer that Mr. Trump is threatening Canada with, it would be the national security tariffs on autos. My understanding is that the Department of Commerce has suspended its investigation in this area. The other key point to be aware of is that Japan and the European Union have signed on to what appear to be FTA-ish negotiations to obtain exemption from these tariffs. Korea and Mexico, the other major auto suppliers, have also bought some form of exemption. So the only country that these national security tariffs would apply to would be Canada, and that simply is laughable. So the hammer might not be there. And I think Canada is negotiating from the perspective that we want to get a good deal, and we want to have a situation wherein the agreement that we sign provides confidence of market access into the U.S. market from Canada to keep Canada a good place to invest. Otherwise, why would we sign on and pay very handsome benefits to U.S. companies in the form of expanded royalties on intellectual property, in the form of extended term for copyright, and in possibly the most important part, in terms of the free flow of data, which is extraordinarily valuable to the major U.S. corporations. Why would you pay up front in exchange for nothing? Okay.
Do you think there will be a deal?
I suspect that we will be negotiating in 2019.
Okay, well, we'll leave it on that note. Dan Chiriak, a former Deputy Chief Economist at Foreign Affairs and International Trade Canada, speaking with me from Ottawa tonight. Thank you, Dan.
Good evening.